What I miss most about horse racing, although I'm still involved in some capacity, I miss the people. I miss my friends, the jockeys in the jocks room. That becomes like your second family. And winning, I miss winning for sure. My name is Ramon Dominguez, and I'm a retired thoroughbred jockey. In my 19-year career, I rode over 21,000 races. And I was able to win here in North America 4,985 races. I am originally from Venezuela, and that's where my riding career started. Actually, I did show jumping 1 year prior to riding race horses, and that wasn't really by design, or it wasn't by choice. My parents, who were not too crazy about the idea of me riding races, as a consolation prize or to kind of take me away from riding races or the idea of riding races. However, simultaneously, I learned that there was nearby a training center where they exercise race horses. And I started going there, and that started my journey as a jockey back in 1992. The living conditions were pretty rough. I slept in a tack room for a while in the floor, and then I got a hammock, so that was exciting. But there were no bathrooms, there was no showers, so everything was with a bucket, you will get a shower. And however, it was not really a big sacrifice. The biggest challenge for me was being away from my family for the first time, but I was enjoying the whole learning experience, working with the horses and getting to exercise some of them. So yeah, that was my very beginning in the sport. My career in Venezuela as a jockey was short. I rode my first race in 1994, and it was in a small track that was not recognized. And from there, I moved to another racetrack that I rode in 1995. I won 53 races in 1 year, and then I had the opportunity to come to the US and start riding here in 1996. I was 18 years old when I won my first race. My first win is one of those moments that, regardless of how many things you accomplish in your career, you can never forget, and that's the case with me. It was an amazing day because although you're preparing, you are hopeful that to come and win a race. Sometimes you get a little discouraged and you don't know if you're going to win that first race. So it was a day of celebration for me and my family, and truly one of the highlights of my career. From early stages, I already had my eyes on coming to the US because we idolize racing, not only US, but Europe in Venezuela. However, the US was something that was a little more comfortable for me, the idea to come here. So sure enough, I had the opportunity to come in 1996, and it was an experience from so many different perspectives. I didn't know how to speak English at all. I was very naive regarding racing. I didn't know a whole lot. So I started from zero. Yeah, when I first arrived to the US, there was a little bit of a culture shock, just besides racing, understanding how things work here. But I was very happy to see how everything was systematic, and the support. I cannot emphasize enough the support that I received from really strangers that were willing to extend their hands and help me in so many different ways, from opening their doors for me to stay in their house, to being a mentor, whether in my profession or in life in general. It was a very interesting journey or progression because trying to follow the way things are supposed to work, it was very mechanical for a while, the way I rode horses, which is really the way most jockeys ride races. So you handicap the race and you go out there, you get instructions, and you try to follow the system, or you try to follow the instructions. Now that sounds good in theory, in many cases work, but in most cases fail. We're not dealing here with machines, we're dealing with animals who have an understanding, and they are all different. So after a while of riding in this very mechanical way, just doing what I'm supposed to do, I kind of went back to my beginnings in show jumping. And in show jumping, one of the most amazing things that I learned, it was the connection with the horse, how there is this contact with the reins and the horse's mouth, and that's how we communicate with the animals. So there were some subtle changes that I could do, whether it is body language or whether it is shifting my way, whether it is increasing the pressure in the horse's mouth or decreasing the pressure, that allow me to get to a point where this communication between the animal and myself was so high that there was very little being asked from me to them in the physical form, whether it was encouraging the horse with the riding crop or even moving my hands. So I was able to allow the horse to relax, and then they will be able to finish up the best way they could without me interfering. My coach, one day while I was doing a little too much on top of a horse because I was getting confidence and I felt like the more I did, the better I was, he said to me, the best jockey or the best rider is the one that the horse notices the least. And that really exemplifies what anyone in any discipline is, or their purpose is really to be the best passenger. Yes, there are some teaching moments where you must basically tell the horse, this is what I want you to do, but we get to a point where the horse knows what his job is, and your job is to be a great listener and a great passenger being present. I was very fortunate to win some good races, and of course the Breeders' Cups are some of my greatest memory as a jockey as far as races won. My first one was in 2004 with a horse by the name of Better Talk Now. The trainer was Grand Motion, and a horse that I had some wins on, and he was challenging in a good way. It was something that I was very excited to ride him because he was difficult to ride. He had his own mind and he could get strong, and he will drift in a lot of times. So it was this constant communication with the horse, trying to get him to do what he was supposed to do and him kind of pushing back. So in 2004 I came to Texas to ride him, and he wasn't the first choice by any means, and we just sat chilly, and there was the field made an early move, and I just allowed him to relax and turning for home. He made a great finish and we ended up winning the race. So it was one of those moments where it takes a little while for the reality to sink in, because you're like, wow, did I just won a Breeders' Cup race? So the emotion was through the roof. For me, my family, actually, my brother was visiting, so that was a day that I probably didn't sleep that night just out of joy. And then a few years later, I had the opportunity to win actually in Kentucky with a horse by the name of Handsome, the juvenile. And another exciting race, a horse that was very fast, and he went to the lead, and it looked like they were gonna catch him, and he just continued to push, and he ended up winning the race by a small margin. So very exciting as well. And the last year I rode, or the year before I retired, I won my last Breeders' Cup on a horse that defied the odds that day. He ran a mile and a half, which was beyond what was believed that he could do, but also he didn't make the lead. He was his best running style, or proven running style, was on the lead, and he came from third position, and super exciting the finish. And so those are races that will forever be in my mind and memory, and emotionally something that I will always remember as if it happened yesterday. So I was really enjoying the pinnacle of my career. I was doing very well, and in 2013 I was involved in an accident where I suffered a traumatic brain injury in a race, and although I was hopeful to get back on a horse, and those were my intentions, it got to a point where the doctors told me that I could not ride anymore. What I suffered was very severe, and thankfully my recovery has been amazing, but the risk of going back and hitting my head again is something that they were not happy and were not willing to allow it to happen. So I had to announce my retirement, and it was a difficult time for me because despite you understanding that what you do professionally as much as you like it, it's not really you, it's just what you do. At the same time, it's hard to not to be attached to that or feel like it's part of who you are. So there was a sort of a grieving period, but I had the greatest support from my wife, family, and friends. And in what it seems like no time, I was able to go back to the track and watch the races and hang out with my friends and enjoy the racing as I always have. So there have been a few projects that I'm working on, and the main focus that I have right now has been with bringing to market something that I developed 10 years ago. It was a riding crop that will elevate the standard of safety for the animals, for the equestrian. And I am extremely excited with a team of people who are helping me in this journey to bring this to the market, not only for horse racing, but other equestrian disciplines. And if I had to talk to a young rider that is in the shoes I was 25 years ago, there are so many different concepts and there are many different principles that apply and are important. However, nothing substitutes the passion and the love that one can have for the profession and riding. So I never did this for money, at least for the first 10, 15 years. It was purely the excitement and the love and the aspiration of winning a race. And when somebody feels that way, when somebody is in the same mindset that I was, the so-called obstacle that can come your way, and believe me, there are many. Some that your mind gives you, some that the people that you surround yourself with will tell you, and I can tell you so many that I came across. You're too tall, you don't look good on the horse, you don't have the ability, and so on and so forth. Those are not important. The vision that you have, the desire to accomplish your goals, is like a horse with blinders or blinkers, however you want to put it. You will get it. It's a matter of when you will get it, but you absolutely will get it.